Hi, my name's Kim J and I'm a visually impaired chef. I'm also a volunteer for RNIB. Today I'm going to show you how to make dal. Now dal is an Indian dish, it's vegetarian and vegan and it comes in very different varieties. When you go to the supermarkets you have lentils and you have different pulses and beans. So we have red lentils, we have mung beans, mung lentils, urid lentils, urid beans. And most people, when they're making dal, go straight for the red lentils. Now, each lentil and each bean has a different taste. And it is well worth venturing into making different types of dal. Now today, I'm going to make mung bean dal. It's green, it's very easy to make, and if you want to use another dal in its place, it will work perfectly. Now the ingredients for this dal is 200 grams of chopped tomatoes, 300 grams of dal. Like I said, I've got mung beans. Now the difference between mung beans and lentils is lentils are usually flat and smooth, and they're a lot faster to cook. The beans take a lot longer and are usually oval in shape. I've got 3 green chilies, 3 cloves of garlic, approximately 2 centimetres of ginger, 1 onion, cumin seeds, a generous handful of chopped coriander. We're going to need salt, black pepper, chili powder, turmeric and oil. And these are the ingredients for this dal. I've washed the mung dal out and I put it into a large pan and covered it with hot water till it's about 1.5 centimetres above the actual dal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this water up to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and I am slowly going to cook this until those beans are nice and cooked and soft to the touch, almost as if they're disintegrating. It does take a little bit of time. If the water reduces by half, just add a little bit more watering, stirring continuously. Now if you ever have extra time and you know you're going to make dal beforehand, it's well worth soaking the dal for a couple of hours before you cook it. It makes the cooking time even faster. And whilst that's going on, we will go on to the next step. The dal is simmering away and cooking nicely, and I'm stirring every so often so it doesn't stick at the bottom. And I've now got another large pan, and into it I've put approximately 2 tablespoons of vegetable oils. And I'm going to heat that oil up, and when I can hear the oil sizzling, I'm going to add some cumin seeds. Now you'll need approximately a teaspoon of cumin seeds. I love cumin seeds. The smell is so distinctive of Indian curries, earthy, musky. It is delicious and it flavours all the foods so perfectly. I can hear the sizzle of the oil. Now I'm going to put approximately a teaspoon of the cumin seeds in, and I can hear the cumin seeds popping and the aroma of the cumin seeds getting stronger. Now at this stage, keeping away from the pan, I'm going to add that 1 onion, which I have chopped up very finely, and give it a stir. I've cooked the onions just for 5 minutes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add half the quantity of the chopped garlic, ginger and chilies into it. Only half the quantity. This will help to flavour these onions even more. Now if you don't like it hot, just don't put the chilies in, or just put 1 green chilli in. Make this your own recipe. And if you feel those onions sticking, add a tiny little bit of water and you'll find that it will decaramelise the pan and it will be easier to cook. Now I'm going to cook these onions until they're a lovely golden brown. I've been cooking these onions for 10 minutes now and they're a lovely rich golden brown. Now people ask me, being visually impaired, and especially when you don't have colour, how do you know when those onions are ready? Well, I know by the feel of it, because as I stir, the onions come together in a very loose clump, all sort of joining together in a ball, but a loose ball rather than the much sort of thicker ball that I would do if I was doing a vindaloo or a madras. Now at this stage, I'm going to add in the rest of the ingredients. And this is the rest of the garlic, the ginger, and the chillies. Give it a bit of a stir. And I'm now going to add in my tomatoes. And as I do this, it starts to release those wonderful Asian odours of the ginger and the garlic and the cumin. Now I'm going to add my spices. Now the first one is my salt. Now it sounds a lot, but you've got to remember there's quite a quantity of dal, so I'm going to put about 1.5 teaspoons of salt in there. Next is black pepper, and I'm going to put 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper in there. The next thing is that lovely golden yellow turmeric, earthy and so good for you, great anti-inflammatory. And next is the chilli powder. Now I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon, but it's up to you to decide how much you want. If you're not good with spices, start with 1/4 teaspoon and then build up. And into this, I'm now going to put about 1/2 of that freshly cut coriander. Give it a stir, and I'm now going to cook this masala sauce for about another 10 minutes, just to let those spices and the garlic, ginger and chilies to infuse together. I've cooked this masala for 10 minutes, still keeping an eye on my dal, stirring it, adding water, and it's now cooked. How do I know it's cooked? Because when I stir it, again, I can feel the masala clumping together as I stir into a very loose ball. Now I'm now going to put this masala on one side whilst I wait for my dal to be cooked. This dal has been cooking for an hour, and I've added quite a bit of water into it because as it cooks it starts to swell and it needs more liquid. Now for those of you that are lucky enough to have a pressure cooker, the time will be reduced, but when you're visually impaired, pressure cookers are very dangerous, so this is the safest method of cooking. Now you know when the dal is cooked, when you just literally squeeze a little bit of the dal in your fingers and it disintegrates. Now you put the gas onto a little simmer and we go on to the next step. Now I'm going to tell you one of my little secrets. When you ever have a dal in the restaurant, it's thick, it's creamy. That's because they add either creme fraiche or cream in it, fattening. But this method is so much easier. Now what I've done is, in a mixing bowl, I'm going to add just a couple of ladles of dal with a couple of ladles of the liquid, and I'm going to blitz it down until it's absolutely as fine and as liquid as I can get. And what this does is, when I add it back to the dal and put it back in the hob, it's lovely and thick and creamy without that added fat. I've blitzed it down. Now if you don't have a blitzer, don't worry, just cook it for the dal for a little bit longer. And I'm going to add it to my mixture of dal and put it back on the hob for the next step. I've put the dal back on the hob. The liquid is thick and creamy with lentils floating about. Now I'm going to add in that masala. And once I've added in the masala, I'm just going to cook it for 5 minutes just to allow all those spices to infuse into the dal. I've cooked this dal now for 5 minutes and I'm going to do the best bit. Check it for taste. Always check it for taste. Needs just a touch more salt for me. Now, if the dal is too thick to your taste, add more water. If it's too thin, condense it some more. So I've added a little bit more salt and a little bit more coriander, leaving some aside so that when I serve, I can garnish the fresh coriander on top. Here we have the dal. Now, if I was serving this up to guests, I would add sort of a green chilli on top for added extra garnish, and some tiny flecks of cherry tomatoes in there for sweetness. Now the great thing about this dal is it freezes really well. You can prepare it the night before, but just remember, dal, when it starts to cool down, it gets thicker. So when you come to reheat it up, you'll find that it needs more water in it, which is perfectly okay. And there you have it, Moong Dal. Now you have a recipe for a great dish. But when you're in the kitchen, there are certain safety guides and rules that you should adhere to, and which keeps you safe. Now, one of the things that I do before I start cooking is I make sure that I've got shoes on that are sturdy with good grips. I make sure that there's nothing on the floor that I can trip over, and there are no spillages or liquid or condensation on the floor that makes it a bit of a hazard. Now, before cooking, the first thing that you do, as we all know, is wash our hands thoroughly. And especially when you're dealing with raw meat at every stage, wash your hands thoroughly. It stops cross-contamination. It keeps you and your family safe. When you're using the oven and the hob, know your oven and hob really well. Now, I use tactile markings so that I know exactly what temperature to put the oven on and what setting, so that I've not put the grill on when I should be putting the oven on. Now, with the hob, whenever you're sort of putting anything on the hob, make sure the handle is not sticking out. Now, I like to keep the handle at approximately 10 to 12. And the reason for that is it's not near enough to the unit for you to accidentally knock it off. It is not over another hob which may be on, so the handle's getting hot. So this is the safest position. Now, if you're boiling anything, be very, very careful. Don't fill the pan up too much. And if possible, use the boiler alert, which tells you when that liquid is bubbling away and it's hot, and it keeps you safe. If you're not comfortable with the hob and the oven, use the microwave whenever you can. It's a lot safer. And every time you are taking things out of the oven or from the microwave, because remember, plates and dishes get extremely hot in the microwave, use oven gloves. Now, I like to use thermal oven gloves. They're a lot safer. Don't be tempted to use tea towels or anything else. And they literally go to extreme temperatures, so you're very safe with them. Whenever you cut any food in the kitchen, use safe cutting methods. Keep the blade away from your fingers, so set it a couple of millimeters away from your fingers, and that way you're safe all the time. Now, if you're not confident with a knife, you can use appliances like food processors. Make sure you know how they work properly. and keep safe. And if you're still not confident, ask somebody else to do it. It is better to be safe than have an injury. If you have any cuts or you cut yourself whilst you're in the kitchen, put a plaster on it. And if you have a burn, run it under cold water. And if it's bad, you seek medical advice straight away. Whenever you cook meat, always ensure that the meat is thoroughly cooked, because you know raw meat will give you food poisoning. Now, the best optimum temperature to cook meat is between 66 degrees and 73 degrees. Use a food thermometer if you're not too sure. They do have talking food thermometers, which you can get quite easily. And you store the meat as soon as you can. As soon as it's cooled down, store it straight away in the fridge and read the advice on storage on the labels.